Your life's digital, and so are we. The Digital Lifestyle.
Nestled in the hills near Linden, Virginia, is a wonderland for arcade enthusiasts. Peter Hirschberg's 20-year hobby has culminated in this, his own private arcade. It all started innocently enough with one arcade classic.
He had an Asteroids for sale, Asteroids machine, and I bought that, and that was basically the start. I just, what else can I get? What else do I want? All of a sudden it was opening up all these dreams of I can get any game now, and I can fix them, because I was doing electronics at the time, so buy them broken and fix them.
Peter has faithfully reproduced a 2,400 square foot arcade with vintage arcade games from the 1970s and 80s.
They just have a physical presence. I mean, they were in an arcade somewhere. You can put one machine in your living room and it just draws your attention to it. It just, like I said, it has a presence that you can feel. I mean, I know it sounds dorky, but the console, if you play that on your computer or something, it just doesn't have that. It's like a recording of a live concert, You can feel the games in here. I mean, you can hear them, you can smell them, you can, I was trying to create this, not just the game. Anybody can play this on their computer.
Married with kids, Peter tells us his wife has been highly supportive of his efforts.
My wife always is very defensive of the fact that she loves this stuff. She's pointed out that she probably wouldn't have this if it weren't for me, because I'm the one that buys them and fixes them and restores them and is knowledgeable about them. But she loves it. I mean, she did this too when she was a kid. She lived on a beach town, so this was the thing to do when you were growing up. So she thinks it's just really cool.
And as for the kids,
my son kind of is interested, but they don't really appreciate what they have here. I would have given one of my arms for a home Pong machine, the home one that hooks to your TV when I was a kid.
Peter says the sense of discovery found in the arcade days has disappeared.
So the reason we used to go to the arcades back in early 80s, late 70s is because every time you'd go there, you'd see something completely different. It's like, oh my God, they have color vectors now, or just vectors in general. Every game that came out was something that hadn't been thought of before. It's very rare that something comes out and you're like, wow, that's a really original idea. Nobody's thought of that before. And that's what's missing, I think, and that's what doesn't interest me, is I have no interest in, reliving driving down the road or, fighting with somebody. I want something completely trippy, like blowing up asteroids in outer space or, being attacked by robots. There's a couple games that come to mind that really depend on the original cabinet, or at least the original control scheme. One of them is Missile Command, because you got the trackball. Another one similar to that is Marble Madness. It's just, you can't play it without the trackballs. It's just not the same. Battlezone is one where you're actually looking through the scope, and doing the controls. Got a Seawolf where you have a similar thing where you kind of look through a periscope. Lunar Lander is another one where you've got this, very substantial, cool feeling thruster thing. That's the whole game. You take that off and it loses something. I didn't have a lot of money growing up, and I would go to the arcades and I just would like to take it in and see what was new. And it's like, oh, that's awesome. I've never, they were magical to me. Like the new games that would come out, the old games, and eventually, you'd start noticing a trend where older games would start disappearing, which I always thought was just kind of odd. I didn't realize that they were really all the way, never going to be seen again. So, I didn't have a lot of money to play, and a lot of these games, I never was a good player because I didn't have money to sit there and be relentless about it. But now, the first game I had was Asteroids, and it's like I could actually get good at it because you could just play it nonstop for free. And it was kind of gratifying. It was kind of like, now it's my turn, to get my turn to be able to play this game. Back then there was even lines and things, and I was a laid-back person. I was kind of intimidated by the whole arcade, all the people and everything. So it's nice to be able to just play one and not have people, peering over your shoulder and waiting to get their next turn. And so yeah, it's free in the sense that I don't want people paying money for it, but I still have the quarters around for the nostalgic sake, because it takes some of the magic out of it if you don't have to actually put quarters in it. Out of high school, I went to a computer learning center and took electronics, and electronics always fascinated me. That's probably why games appealed to me, is because they were just, magical pieces of equipment that I just liked, in a geek manner. Maybe that's what separates me from the people who just want to play it on MAME, is I'm not interested in them for the game aspect as much as they're fascinating machines to me. So I got interested in electronics, went to school for that, got a job fixing Atari computers, home computers. From there, went on to, I got a job fixing arcade games at a place that used to restore them. And now I'm working at AOL. I've been working there almost 10 years.
Just because the arcade is private doesn't mean you can't get in on the fun. Peter plans to occasionally open the arcade to other gamers.
I don't mind if people come by and play as long as I know about it in advance. And so I typically set up like a game day once every few months where it's like, this is like an open house. Call to arms, if you want to come, it'll be this day from these times. I'll have snacks or whatever and just come. That's all I ask, Don't bring your own money. I have to be careful not to charge for this or anything because it would be a business then, and this is clearly residential, so I like seeing, 50 or 60 people playing the games at once because that's what makes it the arcade to me.
With some games over 30 years old, loving care is a must.
It's kind of like taking the old vintage car out for a drive. You're probably gonna have to pull over at some point, and bang on something. So the older the games are, the more finicky they are. The more that, even though you've fixed everything technically, they still every now and then have some weird problem. You got to bang on them or twist something, But it's a constant job. I could be in here every day, 24 hours a day, just fixing stuff, and there'd still be something broken or not working right. The people who made them, they made these really cheap to last, a year or two maybe in the arcades, and they'd throw them in the landfill or whatever. They weren't made to last 20 or 30 years, so it's hilarious to me that you can turn them on and they still work, and they have no concept of time,
Since we had an arcade expert on our hands, it was time to settle some age-old debates. Donkey Kong versus Pac-Man.
Pac-Man. I think Pac-Man holds up better.
Pac-Man or Q*bert?
I like them both. I'm going to cop out on that one.
Atari 2600 versus Intellivision.
2600. In fact, I have one. I don't have an Intellivision. I think technically speaking, the Intellivision was better, and they made a big deal out of that, but it wasn't as curl-up, fuzzy, feel good to me as 2600,
Galaga versus Galaxian.
That's the easy one, because I hate Galaga. Which is funny, because I loved Galaxian when it came out, and then everyone somehow took a liking to Galaga instead, and everyone always asks me about Galaga, and I really don't like the game that much. It's okay, but I pretty much got it specifically because everyone kept harassing me about not having it.
Years from now, Peter may be seen as the chief preservationist of key video game history.
People still remember Beethoven, and to me these are the classics, like the Beethoven and the Chopin and Bach. People will remember these games 100 years from now, hopefully. At least if I can help it.